about a day, we'll be experiencing the new moon. At this time, this is when the moon is as close to the sun as possible, and so it's not able to reflect the sun's light. The full moon, on the other hand, is when the sun and the moon are completely opposite each other, in opposition to each other. And the moon is then able to catch all of the sun's light and reflect it back to the earth. You can often tell when we're experiencing a full moon, because generally speaking, you might see that the moon rises at the exact same time the sun sets. So when you have that going on, you know you're very near a full moon. The new moon, on the other hand, you can't see. Sometimes you can see it in the sky as a dark spot, but since it's not reflecting the light of the sun, obviously it's dark, a dark moon, you can't see it that well. However, even though the moon is dark, even though its power of light isn't as strong as the full moon, it still has its power of gravity. And we have to remember that when it comes to astrology, there are aspects of it that we don't understand. Part of it does deal with the light reflected by the planets or reflected by the moon. Another aspect of it is the interweaving, the network of magnetic, electromagnetic, geosolar influences that occur when we have these bodies moving around the sun along with our earth, tugging and pulling and pushing on each other with these powers. Now when we have a new moon, we've got the sun and the moon on the same side of the earth. And we can see the effects of the moon in things like the tides. We can see the effects of the moon and its movement around the earth related to even the influences on the earth's crust, the movement of the earth's crust. So sometimes when we have the moon and the sun opposite each other, in a sense that's like pulling apart the earth. If you can imagine the earth just being pulled apart as though two hands were on it trying to expand it. And then when we have the new moon, we have the moon coming around the earth to the sun, and then we have the influence of both the sun and the moon pulling on one side of the earth. And this is why the new moon, the dark moon, is often associated in a sense with new beginnings. It's associated with creating something new for the future. Why is that? Because if you're familiar with the seasons, at least as they are here in our hemisphere, when we come to fall and winter, the plants, the trees in particular, lose their leaves, and they pull their life force, they pull their sap back from the leaves, from the branches, into the trunk, down into the earth, into the roots. This happens with all kinds of plants. And what that's doing is it's storing up new energy for the next season of growth. It's preparing for the next season of growth. The same is true when we have a new moon. We have the energy of the moon moving towards the sun, and it's pulling all of the mass of the water of the earth, all of the life force towards the sun and the moon. So in a sense, it makes the planet seem kind of lopsided, if you will. And so whatever sign or house the new moon falls in, it's going to have both the sun and the moon in that house, generally. Sometimes we can get them right on those border lines in between signs or in between houses, which can split it up a little bit, but it's pulling in the direction of the sign that holds both the moon and the sun. So if you're looking at a person's chart, you'll see the symbol for the sun and the symbol for the moon in the same sign. Now that is an indication of a new or dark moon. Now what do you do during that time? How do you know how to engage the energy of that time? Well, most of the time I like to tell people it's a wonderful time to meditate more, to take more naps, to not necessarily be so outgoing, to turn within a little bit. In the same way in the wintertime or in the fall, you start to turn within. And then as we start moving from the new moon back to the full, we'll then start exercising a bit more, building up, being more active and things of this nature, following the currents of the moon as it goes around the earth. But whatever sign that new moon falls in, that is the sign to pay attention to in regards to if you want to develop anything in that sign. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's say we've got the new moon falling in Taurus. Well, do you need to plan? Do you need to set new intentions? Do you need to reflect on how to manage your material resources better for Taurus? If we have the new moon in Libra, do you need to pull back away from, get some distance from your relationships and find out, all right, what do I need to do? How do I need to conserve my energy? That way when I go back into my relationships, any kind of relationships, because Libra deals with business relationships as well as romantic relationships, how do I need to be new? How do I need to approach it from a new light? If you have the new moon occurring in Cancer, which is a sign of what? The home, the heart, our emotional sense of center. Well, you can ask yourself, what do I need to do to be more emotionally secure in my life? How do I need to take care of myself so that when I approach the world, it's coming from a sense of emotional integrity, emotional honesty? And what do I need to do in my life to make sure that I'm able to support more joy, more love, more beauty, more grace, both within my life, but also within my home, the place that you spend most of your time. You can even keep it as mundane as, if we have the new moon occurring in Cancer, what do I need to do to my home to either clean it up, beautify it, revive it, keep it a sacred place? If you have the new moon occurring in Leo, well, Leo can deal with all kinds of things. Leo can deal with your ability to lead, to inspire others, or following your own inspiration. So during a new moon in Leo, you have that energy of the sun and the moon pulling away from the opposite sign and into the sign in which they're placed. And for example, using Leo, what do you need to do in order to follow a more inspired life? What do you need to do to be more authentically yourself? What do you need to do to tap into your creativity? And sometimes that requires hard work. We have to remember the sign of Leo isn't just about being the entertainer, the king, the leader. It's also about doing hard work. We played a little show last night, our Irish group, and afterwards I was chatting with some of the musicians that joined us, and they were all saying, sometimes I spend an hour every day working on music. Or another one said, I like to spend at least 2 hours a day to make sure I'm doing it well. So for them to express their creativity, to express their inspiration, they realized that they had to work hard to master that. So whether you're interested in music, whether you're interested in astrology, whether you're interested in engineering, cooking, whatever it might be, whenever we have a new moon in Leo, it's a time to step back and say, all right, in this coming month or even in the coming years, whatever it might be, what do I need to do to have a good plan so that I can better express my creativity, my inspiration? Or if you're in roles of leadership, what do I need to do in order to make sure I am the best, most inspiring leader? And again, remembering that being a leader, being a king or a queen or whatever it might be, doesn't mean that you please everybody. Sure, you want to take care of your kingdom, but the reason we have a king is because ideally that king knows better than the populace, and he's there to guide and care for those people that he's there to inspire and lead. In the same way that if we have a good father or a good mother, sometimes they have to do things that the children don't like, but in the end, the children might think to themselves, I'm so glad my parents did this for me. So whenever we're thinking about the placement of a new moon, figure out what sign it's in. What are the qualities of the sign? What are the indications of the sign? And it's the nature of that sign in relationship to your life that you have to ask yourself, all right, I'm going to withdraw my energy away from these other distractions. I'm going to sit with, reflect upon, what do I need to do to either support or improve the qualities of that sign in question? So keep this in mind whenever it comes to a new moon. And if you follow this, well then, as you go through the year, year after year, you're going to be working with each sign at least once a month. And you're going to be developing that sign over the years, over time, in a very balanced fashion. So remember, the part of astrology isn't always necessarily about prediction. It's about keeping you in harmony with the qualities, the energies of life around you. The life from the sun, the life of the earth, the life of the moon, the interaction of those things, the soul nature of the sun, the personality nature of the moon, the body of the earth, with all of the changing consciousness influencing factors of the planets, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and so on. So this could get rather complicated, but for now our purposes are just to consider what sign is the moon in. Learn about everything you can about that sign. Then when it comes time for a new moon, about a day before, during the new moon, a day after, that's the time to pull within, get more rest, reflect upon, all right, what do I need to do to work with this? How do I need to more internalize my energy so that I can go forward after this planning phase to work with the qualities of that new moon sign for the betterment of my own life, for the betterment of the people around me, my family, and so on. So consider this when you're thinking about the new moon.